When people see I live my life on life support, they often ask me one of two questions. First, they ask me, what happens when your ventilator stops working? And the other question they frequently ask me is, what happens when the power goes out? Now, these might seem like catastrophes, but actually, they're not that complicated. So let me answer the first question. What happens when my ventilator stops working? Because I use a wheelchair, my insurance company allows me to have two ventilators. Now, they allow this because they consider one ventilator to be the bedside ventilator and the other ventilator to be attached to the wheelchair. Now, the person on the ventilator, it can be very challenging to get them from the bed into the wheelchair and then also move the ventilator from the bedside and get it connected to the wheelchair. Because it's so difficult to do this, my insurance company allows me to have two ventilators at one time. With that being said, I unfortunately do not have any way to attach my ventilator to my wheelchair. Many people have told me, "Oh, you should attach your ventilator to your wheelchair." And I'm like, "Great. And how do we do that?" And nobody has any ideas. So my two ventilators just act as two ventilators. One is on a stand and it goes with me wherever I go in the home. However, if I leave my home, I do not take the stand with me. Instead, I have my backup ventilator that I just take with me, and I just leave my ventilator that's on the stand. I just leave it as is because it's much easier just to leave that alone and take my backup ventilator with me when I'm out and about. Another great thing about the ventilators is they very rarely stop working. I've had one ventilator since 2017 that stopped working. It was overheating, and it was because I was having issues with my tracheostomy tube. The tracheostomy tube was digging into my trachea, which was causing a lot of resistance. It was causing the ventilator to work very, very hard. And in essence, it caused the ventilator to overheat and it failed. However, I was simply able to switch over to my secondary ventilator, allow the first ventilator to cool off, and then the ventilator worked once again. I have heard of somebody else that actually had two ventilators fail within 48 hours. She had one ventilator fail, she switched over to her secondary, and then either it was the next day or the following day, the second ventilator also failed, which was kind of catastrophic. And thankfully, she was able to manually ventilate with an ambu bag. So that's another thing you need. If you have a ventilator with a tracheostomy tube, or if you just have a tracheostomy tube, you should really have an ambu bag. Let me show you what an ambu bag looks like. So this is what an ambu bag looks like. Sometimes it has this tail attached to it. It sometimes has this mouthpiece attached to it. And you might think, well, that's great. You can hook this up to the person and ventilate that way. But what about a tracheostomy tube? Well, this can come off. You just hold it right here and then, oh, okay. There we go. I can do this perfectly in rehearsal, but I'm filming, let's screw it up. So let's try that again. Okay, it's like this. You hold it right here and you just pull down and this detaches. Now this right here can attach to your tracheostomy tube. I can quick show you this. Now you can give the person a breath. As you can see, I was manually ventilating myself. So if you only have one ventilator, or if you have both ventilators and if for some reason they both fail on you, you should have this ambu bag. This ambu bag, you just slowly give a breath and it will inflate the lungs and it will give a breath to somebody that has a tracheostomy tube. And if the person doesn't have a tracheostomy tube, you should use this mask attachment and ventilate that way on your mouth. So this is pretty easy to use. Somebody asked me if you should inflate the cuff on the tracheostomy tube. If you're trying to keep somebody alive, let's say their ventilator failed and they do not have a mucus clog in their tracheostomy tube, I suppose if they have this cuff, I suppose you could inflate it to give them the full respiratory support. But quite frankly, just manually ventilating with the cuff deflated, I get enough ventilatory support just doing it manually because this really pushes air into your airway. But I suppose you could inflate this as long as they do not have a clog or a mucus plug in their tracheostomy tube. If they have a mucus plug in their tracheostomy tube, do not do not inflate it because it'll cause other complications. But that's how you ventilate if both ventilators fail or if you only have one ventilator. It's called an ambu bag and it's pretty convenient. You say how long can you manually ventilate? As long as you want. You just keep doing air. My one friend said she had to do this for a couple of hours because her ventilator failed and she had to get to the hospital. A couple hours. Thankfully, she had other people with her. She had her caregiver, and then when she got to the hospital, they had somebody else that was helping in the waiting room until they were able to get the ventilator for her. But yeah, you can continue to manually ventilate people with this until you can get onto a ventilator or until some other apparatus is found that helps you breathe. Now, on to the second question, which is what happens when the power goes out? When the power goes out, things become a little bit frantic because you're on a time limit. If you have a ventilator and it's plugged into the outlet, once the power goes out, the ventilator automatically switches over to battery backup. If your ventilator is already running on battery, it's just going to continue to run on battery. And the question is, well, how long will your ventilator run? And that is all contingent upon how much battery you have on your ventilator. If you're already running your ventilator on battery, your ventilator may only have 1 or 2 hours, but if it's fully charged, if it's plugged into the outlet and is just completely fully charged, then you might get 6 or 8 hours on your battery, depending on your ventilator. Some of the ventilators, such as the Trilogy Evo, you can get about 9, maybe 10 hours. You can get a little bit longer power supply on those. Some of the other ventilators I've heard can even have longer batteries. You can get bigger batteries that can last up to 24 hours. My batteries on my ventilator last about 6 to 8 hours. So I'm really restricted to about 12 to 16 hours that I can be without power because remember I have 2 ventilators and I always make sure they are fully charged. I always keep my ventilator plugged into the wall unless I absolutely need it. And even if I go into another room, I will unplug and then plug in the ventilator again because you never know. You never know when the power could go out. It is a good idea if you're on a ventilator or on any other life supporting device that you register with the power company. Usually this entails getting a form, having it signed by the doctor, and submitting it back to the power company. However, this does not guarantee you will have power. This does not guarantee that your power won't go out. What it does do is it will alert you to any planned power outages. However, if you do not pay your power bill, they will cut you off. They don't care if you're on life support. They will cut off your power if you do not pay. So do not think signing this document and getting your doctor to sign it and submitting it, that it is a free pass to not paying your electric bill. No, 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 no. That is not how this works. It is simply a document that you register with the power company to let them know you're on a life-sustaining device. And if they plan any power outages for your region, they will let you know ahead of time if they're able to that there's going to be a power outage so you can arrange for alternative power. That brings me to alternative power. So if your power does go out and unfortunately it's going to be a long power outage, what do you do? On many new cars, they have outlets in them and you can plug in devices into the outlet. Now you're going to have to check to make sure your car can support the power for your ventilator, but if everything works out with the power on your car and the power on your ventilator, you might be able to plug in your ventilator into the car and run it on the car. But again, you have to be running the car because otherwise you're going to drain the car battery. That's one option. Another option is to get a generator for your home. These can be either whole home generators, which are automatic. Once the power goes off, the generator automatically comes up. It provides electricity to your entire home. Another type of generator is one that you can manually start and then plug in your home to and then run limited amount of devices on that. For my home, this is the type of generator we have. We have to go out, start it, and then make sure the power is off to our home from the power grid, and then connect up our generator, and then we have a limited amount of electricity to our home. The limited amount of electricity to our home allows me to run my heated humidifier, allows me to run my nebulizer, allows me to run my ventilator without any issue. One of the biggest issues with the generator we have is it's gasoline powered. So you're going to need gasoline to refill it. So we always have some gasoline on hand, which a tank of gasoline runs about 22 to 24 hours. But then after that time, we need to go and get more gasoline. So if it's a really big, awful storm, we might not be able to get any more gasoline, which if that happens, then our generator dies after about 22 to 24 hours. And if that happens, I'm not going to be around. We're going to drive somewhere, travel somewhere, beg people, find somebody that has a generator or find somebody that has electricity and get electricity that way. A couple years ago, I was actually in a big power outage. It lasted for a couple days due to storms and severe weather. Anyways, I was very grateful. I found somebody about 20 minutes away. Thankfully, she had power through the entire power outage. It really was a miracle she had power, and she graciously let me stay at her home and have power and run my ventilator and my heated humidifier and my nebulizer and just everything I needed power for. She allowed me to do that. Oh, I don't know what I would have done if she would not have opened up her home. I guess I would have probably had to drive many hours. I don't know. I would just driven out of our area and tried to find power somewhere and just had to stay at a hotel and spend a lot of money and just hope and pray the power came back on. So that is one limitation about living life on life support is you need electricity for your ventilator and also for your other medical devices. So I'm always very grateful when our power is on, and I always dread whenever our power goes out, and I'm just praying. I just start praying like, please turn the power back on. Please turn the power back on. Although we do have a generator, if it's storming and it's bad weather, we're not going out there. I mean, I don't think anybody I know is going to go out there and, if it's lightning and storming and bad weather, no one's going to go out there and turn the generator on. So I just always hope and pray the electricity goes on, and praise be to God, only that one bad power outage. And since then, our lights and our power have gone on after just a couple hours. And I'm always so thankful and grateful when that happens. So thank you so much for joining me. Please remember to like and subscribe down below. Please also remember to comment and share. It really helps my channel. I hope you have a great day and a wonderful week. Bye-bye.